So basically, I'm going to give you just an update on what we're trying to do here in Quebec is basically develop, let's say, a twin program, very similar to Confiance.ai here in France, but obviously with some twist based on our own ecosystem. So probably you're familiar with Montreal a little bit, kind of a research hub in AI. We face kind of similar challenges as what has been discussed here. A lot of research adoption by industry is much slower, given a lot of issues that are related to Confiance. So basically, here in Quebec, what we're trying to develop, as I mentioned, is a similar program and cover also some aspects about ethics, sustainable AI, socially responsible AI, strong tie collaboration, obviously, with your initiative here in France that has been running for 2 years or a little bit more. So it's part of the project to develop a strong bilateral collaboration agreement to share as much as possible our knowledge, our deliverables, and everything that can be shared based on, obviously, business constraints about the way partners are open to collaborate. So in Quebec, I think the project started slightly differently than from France. So the initiative has been presented to government and stakeholders who find it very relevant given the issues about adoption of AI by the industry. But the program is being developed mostly by, for the moment, not-profit organization like CRIM, and industrial partners will join in shortly. Okay. So what you see on the screen is basically what we proposed to our industrial partners. So basically work pre-competitively to work on challenging problems to speed up the adoption of AI, and also work on developing a talent pool of industrial researchers who will be able to join in companies once they graduate. So obviously the project is very similar to what has been done in France. So the idea is really to develop tool, process, methodologies, validate them on industrial use cases. So we're looking at funding that comes, let's say, 50-50 from the government and from the industry, basically. So here in Quebec, it's mostly provincial government that will fund the public part, with an organization called MyTax that basically funds students' internships. So our roadmap, as I mentioned, we want to develop expertise on some topics that are complementary to what is already taking place in France. So about ethical AI, sustainable AI, responsible AI, and safe and secure AI. So I won't go into details about all these subtopics, but later on I'll give you a more detailed overview of the challenges we want to address. Obviously, we want to work closely with Confiance.ai in France, so we want to share work basically with the roadmap that's already in place here in France, and also to make it clear, so the way we want to do things is not really develop, let's say, a new, let's say, vertical topic, just doing ethics by itself or doing sustainable AI by itself. It's more about how to introduce ethical consideration in the design process of an AI system, or how to take into account sustainable issues when you develop or create an AI system, and so on. So the way the project started was basically with some companies, some of them also being active here in France, and some academic partners who are trying to develop the program. So you see the name there of a couple of companies active in Quebec, different vertical markets. And on the academic side, a number of universities, research institutes, who are basically joining force to develop how the program will work, to mobilize the ecosystem. And so we've been working at this basically since probably February, March, promoting the initiatives through to the government. Last summer, we had a full week of Confiance.ai delegates in France meeting our partners to basically set up the ground for let's say the program here in Quebec. So a little bit about CRIM. So CRIM basically is very similar to System X, so it's an RTO who will play kind of a similar role, that is to host the program. So just a little bit about CRIM. So basically, CRIM is, as I mentioned, it's an organization between the academic world and the industrial world, very often referred as research and technology organization. So we've been around typically for more than 35 years now, doing AI when it was not popular, and probably will keep on doing AI when it will be less popular also. So basically at CRIM you'll find expertise to work on all data types. So that is the group are working on speech, audio, we have natural language processing, text expertise, image, video, numerical data. So all these centralized expertise is at at the same place. We are being funded by the Ministry of Economic Development. So typically, our mandate is really to support companies and organizations to be more productive by using digital technologies and mostly AI. So typically, we do 3 broad type of activities. So obviously, research. The other activity, we call it experimental development. And basically, this is really, at least in Quebec and probably also in other ecosystems, a lot of companies, typically they have a business project, they want to do something, and they are faced with uncertainties, technological risk, and basically they come see us as experts to just do a small part of their project to help them dealing with most complex part and reduce their risk. So very often, we will be involved for a small period of time with companies, helping them to solve challenging technical problem. And third type of activities that we do is basically, let's say, consulting, but very short-term, very focused on technical issues. Because a lot of companies, basically, they are looking just for very specific niche expertise. And so we are funded to be available to our clients. And typically, as part of our expertise, obviously the more algorithmic expertise related to AI, also software development and software architecture, and the third one, which we call data compliance and integrity, but it's closely related to what we're talking about with Confiance.ai. So all other issues about data, about reliability, privacy, and so on. So where we're at now, we're expecting to launch officially the Confiance.ia initiative in Quebec by the end of 2022. Okay. So as I mentioned, when we started the project, basically it's been started by this small group of companies and organizations that have been, let's say, working pro bono since a couple of months to try to put in place all the details about the program. Right now we're at the phase where we launch formal request for a letter of engagement for industrial partners. We have a working group that is basically developing our Quebec roadmap, another working group on use cases, another one on the co-réalisation plateau, and another one on intellectual property. So as you can see, this is kind of very similar to the topics and to the way Confiance.ai is structured here in France. And that's really the goal. It's to start and learn from what has been doing and not to reinvent the wheel for to develop something completely different. So that's why we even meet weekly with our partners from France remotely and just ask questions, share information about how to do things, because we can really appreciate all the hard work, good work that has been done to structure your initiative. And right now, basically in Quebec, we're at this stage where there was an election just this week on Monday. So we're waiting now for the new government to basically to have all the ministers be appointed, the cabinet to start working and be operational again. Kind of the good news is that it's going to be very likely very similar government in continuity, probably the same Minister of Economic Development. So we're expecting things to move fast. We're crossing our fingers that, as I say, by the end of 2022, we should have at least a good news that we are being funded to officially start the project. Another thing that is interesting and that will be challenging in some way is that the government basically told us that the initiative is very relevant, and before the election, obviously, as is often the case with government, they announced a lot of measures for the future, and there's been a lot of money and funds for industrial AI projects. So that means that normally there shouldn't be too much problem about funding, but the only thing is that they told us is that Confiance.ia would not get dedicated funding. We would have to go through these programs that exist, so it means a lot of work about structuring in advance our project, really presenting what will be done on, let's say, 6 months or a year, our yearly planning on different topics. So that's why, and there'll be some, as you see on the screen, some fixed dates for call for proposal. So that's put a lot of pressure on how to make everything happen at different times. But as I said, the good news is that the government is really directing us to these programs and, as I say, and suggesting that they will be funded for many years, so that's very positive. Yeah. So in a nutshell, what we're aiming at, as I mentioned, the program to be hosted by CRIM, so we're aiming at a program of 75 million Canadian dollars. So just for most people, so when I buy a couple of euros, so it's typically 1.4, so a Canadian dollar, 1 euro costs 1.4 Canadian dollars. So, and this would be over 5 years, okay? So what we're looking at is, let's say 10% of this amount would be really to fund the operations of the project, so dedicated personnel, project management, program management, and this would be fully covered by public funds. We are looking to roughly 5 million of private membership, so same structure as Confiance.ai, where you have industrial partners who pay a membership fee, and the balance which would go to that program I mentioned, which is fairly large amount, like 2.5 million, which would be shared 50-50 by industrial contribution and public funding. One thing we're looking for is basically to use some of the membership funds to support also research shares, because we want to work roughly the same way as Confiance.ai with, short-term or mid-term deliverables, but we also know that there are some topics that probably require more time. So we will want to fund these type of research topics through research shares. And the other thing that we want to do is basically fund a lot of students to work on, let's say 4 months block of work or stage. So typically this organization is funding these, MyTax I mentioned is funding these projects. So we're aiming at 200 4 months blocks of time to fund students, basically. I'm not sure I'm doing with time, but basically a couple of slides just to give you an overview. As I mentioned, this is basically what I already mentioned. We'll have to structure our project through these kind of work packages that will have to be presented to a funding program. But the goal of Confiance.ai is really to broaden complementary expertise on the different topics of the roadmap. I have a couple of slides on basically the roadmap that is being developed. Probably I'll go quick because time runs by. So about ethics and responsible AI, one thing we want to do is make sure that concrete methodologies and solutions will be provided to our users. And this means that, in fact, we're going to have as partner not only technological partners, but also some people from School of Commerce who work with companies on different topics related to governance, process, industrial process, and so on. Here you see, I won't go in details, I mentioned some of the topics we want to address. Some of them are also covered in Confiance.ai in France. Some are probably new or a little bit or are not so covered by the current Confiance.ai. Security and privacy also. Here are a couple of, I just give you a couple of seconds to read. And I should say this afternoon, some of our researchers in Quebec will be presenting on these topics. So that's why I will go quickly over them. Sustainable AI. Broad idea is to look at the trade-offs between energy consumption, environmental impact versus the ultimate outcome of an application. So is it worth to do deep learning and train a system for weeks and weeks for an application that might give you a fraction of a % improvement on certain results? Intellectual property, we try to be aligned with Confiance.ai in France to be able to share as much as possible. Membership, this is basically what we are proposing to our partners to speed up the rate of adoption of AI, create talent, and obviously work in this pre-competitive environment to speed up and standardize tools and methods that will be developed. Last slide, obviously the reason why I'm here, we want to work very closely with Confiance.ai, and this is it, basically. So this was just to give you, in a nutshell, an overview of where we're at. Hopefully next time I'll be around, or when people from France will be in Quebec, we'll have good news, and the Quebec initiative will be launched, basically.
Yeah, thank you very much, François. We are almost on time, but we have time for one or two questions. Should you have some? I don't see any hand raised. Yeah, okay. Is it the key?
Thank you for the presentation. Regarding safe and secure AI, and do you intend to collect some results from deal, for instance, if there are any connections planned, if we consider IP issues?
Yeah, well, in fact, here, well, in the room, one of my colleagues, Linda Rabitaille from Université Laval, is in Quebec. Université Laval is the lead of the deal, the Quebec deal initiatives. So we know a lot of these results that come from deal. They might not be yet as mature as required to be fully deployed in industry. So we're really looking to work in continuity and probably take some of the deal deliverables and see if they can be, I don't want to say improved, but let's say made, let's say more usable or test them on practical use cases. So we really see this as a continuity in terms of maturity of the tools being developed.
Thanks.